Let's bring in right now former campaign manager for Donald Trump's winning bid for the White House and now senior advisor to the Trump transition team, Kellyanne Conway. You know, John Kerry actually, a lot of reports have suggested, shares the same frustration as a lot of Americans that Barack Obama has done so little with what's happened in Syria over the past several years. What can you tell us about how Donald Trump's policy towards Syria will be different than Barack Obama's?
Well, first, Joe, let me say, when I hear words like frustrating and disconcerting, it's just not enough. And Willie's absolutely right. People turn on the TV every day and they don't feel disconnected from that. They see it's a humanitarian crisis. They believe that this country is always in a position to help people in need. I think we need a non-politician in the White House as Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States who's not going to sit idly by, who's accustomed to not studying something or feeling frustrated or disconcerted about it, but who's accustomed to delivering and producing results and taking action.
So what is the policy right now?
Women are choosing suicide over rape. It's just tragic.
What is the policy right now? He said a couple of different things. One time on our show, he said he was going to send 10,000 troops in to clean the mess up. Other times he suggested he was going to take more of a hands-off approach and let Russia take care of it. But is he going to listen closely to his advisors, General Mattis and whoever Secretary of State ends up being, if it's Rex Tillerson? Will he listen to them and then develop policies based on their input as well?
The answer to that is yes, absolutely. And in fact, this humanitarian crisis and the entire situation in Aleppo and Syria has been discussed during the interview process for these cabinet positions. He's made very clear that he will confer with those that he's chosen to surround himself with in the cabinet. I mean, each of these positions, including Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, had enormously qualified men and women vying for these positions. And I do think situations like Aleppo were being considered when the president-elect decided whom should be surrounding him in the cabinet. But he's somebody who we always know is in command and control of the final decision, but somebody who's a master listener and learner, particularly when it comes to those who have experience in this space.
Let's talk about the concerns about conflict of interest with the family. What is happening within the transition to try and keep the ethics of the situation in check, work with Washington, and yet perhaps utilize the talents of Donald Trump's children especially?
Yes, and the last part you say, to me, is the most important. We haven't had adult children, if you will, you keep calling them the kids. We haven't had adult children in the White House in quite a while. We've had minor-age children in the past several administrations. Mika, so it is something new, and you're talking about men and women who are incredibly talented and very smart and very involved in their father's business. Obviously, it's a family business. But I have been talking to them daily. And the preliminary advice that I've heard is that, first of all, nobody's made any final decisions. And when they make a final decision about whether they will or will not serve inside the administration, inside the West Wing, everyone will know that. That's a personal decision only they will make and announce. But secondly, the anti-nepotism law apparently has an exception if you want to work in the West Wing, because the president is able to appoint his own staff. So, of course, this came about to stop maybe family members serving on the cabinet.
Right.
But the president does have discretion to choose a staff of his liking. And so if that actually is true and that legal advice holds, then that will open up a realm of possibilities. I will assure you one thing.
Jared and Ivanka to be the two family members that are most likely to take part in the administration?
I think that's a fair assessment, but again, they will make those decisions in due course. I love them both. I love the entire Trump family is unbelievable, except when I stand with all the Trump women somewhere and I feel like Cinderella before the ball. But apart from that, working with them on a daily basis is incredible. They have assured everyone, Joe and Mika, that there will be a complete distinction and separation, no ambiguity about business holdings. They will have to separate themselves completely from these vast, considerable business holdings. These young men and women are at the top of their earning game. The sacrifice that they will all make to go in and serve, if that is what they choose ultimately, is really unprecedented and extraordinary. The idea that they would completely separate themselves from their businesses, very successful businesses, is remarkable. But, you know, Ivanka is very committed to women in the workplace, very committed to women in the global economy. Yeah. And she's in a position where she can actually leverage that and make a difference for women in the economy.
I think it's going to take a team of lawyers, and I'm serious here, to figure out how to sort through all of Jared's holdings, which are vast, Willie, and figure out how he can work there without conflicts of interest. That will employ a law firm for a very long time.
Well, you talked about a complete separation of the businesses from the White House, and yet Donald has said he's going to turn over to Donald Jr. many of his businesses, and there yesterday at that meeting of all the tech CEOs was Donald Jr. Does the president-elect worry about a conflict of interest? Because he can say, well, Don Jr. is going to take over, but we know he's going to talk to Don Jr. It's his son, for God's sakes. Isn't that still a conflict of interest? Anything short of something like a blind trust will always be a conflict of interest.
No, I think anything short of him never talking to his adult children again won't satisfy some of his critics, and there are many out there. So let's be fair. They're going to continue to be his children, that I guarantee you. And I find all this hand-wringing over who was in that meeting yesterday to be really over the top. The meeting was so transparent. You've seen clip after clip, excerpt after excerpt. It's all been reported this morning. It was quite transparent and open. There was nothing secretive about it. And these are adults who have a great deal to offer to the conversation. I thought yesterday was fantastic to have people who disagreed with you politically come around the table, and the president-elect immediately credited them as the big innovators and doers and job creators in our country, if not our world. And to bring them together and to discuss specifically, not for show, discuss specifically repatriating these funds from abroad, certainly dealing together on cybersecurity, certainly increasing the vocational and educational opportunities in technology.
Just quickly though, forget the meeting just for a second then, and just bigger picture, Don Jr. running the Trump business empire, don't you think that's a conflict of interest more broadly?
No,
with his father in the White House?
No, of course not. Who would run it? Don Jr. and Eric are already executives in the corporation. They already work with their father on a daily basis on these holdings. But make no mistake, Willie, the sacrifices they will all make is really what strikes me every day the more I learn about these vast holdings, these iconic properties, the fact that they have assets and deals across many continents. It's really an extraordinary, unprecedented situation, because normally we have politicians going from one job to another job. In this case, the presidency is like, let me just move my government pension and health care over. Right. This is different, but I think to charge them as having a conflict of interest because of their father's new job is really unfair.
Steve Schmidt.
Kellyanne, the transition had announced that the president-elect was going to hold a news conference to talk about his divestment from his business interests. That was canceled. Was it canceled? What was it postponed? Was it postponed because of how complicated the divestment issue is into January, that it's a global business, spanning multiple continents, and there just needs to be more time? Or is that a signal that this just isn't an issue that the transition, that the president-elect puts particular emphasis on?
No, we put great emphasis on it, and I can't even imagine what the legal bills are because they're so committed to his presidency. But no, it's the former. It's that this is the vast holdings, the iconic properties, just the mere assets they have, and getting this right before you announce it is what's important. That's what I've been told by the legal experts and the other protocol experts, to make sure that the structure that's put in place shows the complete separation so that Donald Trump himself, as the president of the United States, Steve, can focus 100% on being the president of the United States. It's going to take a little bit longer.
Mark Halperin.
Mark.
Is Assad staying in power in Syria an acceptable outcome for Donald Trump?
Well, what's not acceptable is what we see right in front of us every day, is that families being torn apart, young children being killed, and nobody doing anything about it that could. So he will make those decisions. He has discussed some of that publicly, Mark, in the debates and elsewise on programs like this. But he will confer with his new team, and it's not up to me, certainly, to make policy for him, but even he is very respectful of the fact that for the next 30-some days, we have a commander-in-chief and a president of the United States already. And so there's no point in really talking about new policy as we're being respectful and deferential to the current occupant.
How big of a problem is Russia, though, as we talk about Syria? Targeted bombing of women, children, hospitals. Does he understand that? Does he understand that, as everybody talks about this relationship with Vladimir Putin and Russia, that has to be at the forefront of our concerns about what Russia's doing?
He does understand that, Joe, and he also is aware. What he has said is, if you can work with Russia and other folks around the globe with whom we don't agree on everything or most things, if you can work with them on some important and necessary projects, if you will, or undertakings, like defeating radical Islamic terrorism, like stopping ISIS. If Russia can join with the United States to do something like that, then we'll listen. But he's very aware of all the hot spots around the globe, a lot of what he's inheriting, and really just America's standing around the world, which he's very committed to changing.
Are you staying and joining the administration?
I definitely support the president-elect and the vice president-elect in whatever they do, Mika. I will make that decision soon.
You did turn down White House press secretary.
I did, and yes, I did.
Are there other positions that interest you in the administration, or that you've been offered?
Yes, there are, and I think after we form the cabinet, there are 2 to go. 16 down, 2 to go in the cabinet.
Right.
Then we'll start to announce some of the senior staff positions, which could happen as soon as this week.
Okay.
And do you think you'll be on that list, or do you want to be on that list, or are you going to be working on the private sector?
It's not as exciting as being on Santa's list right now, Joe. But no, I'm going to support him. I'm either going to go outside and build this surround sound superstructure so that every time somebody tries to get in his way with legislation he wants to pass, I will be there to haunt them, including the 10 Democrats that are up in 2018 in states that he just won, and the additional 5 or 6 that are in states, Democratic senators that are in states that he came close to winning. And that's very important. I want this guy to have 60 or 61 senators after 2018. I'll go inside.
We're being yelled at. We have to
Kellyanne
go.
Conway, thank you.